హలో అండి. నేను యాక్చువల్‌గా ఇండియన్ పాలిటిక్స్ గురించి, అలాగే ఇండియన్ అసోసియేటెడ్ జియోపొలిటికల్ ఇష్యూస్ గురించి చాలా తక్కువ కవరేజ్ చేస్తాను. వన్ ఆఫ్ ద రీజన్స్ ఈస్ దట్ ఐ డోంట్ హావ్ టు సే సంథింగ్ అబౌట్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్, రైట్? లైక్ ఈవెన్ ఇన్ అమెరికన్ పాలిటిక్స్, ఐ పిక్ ద వన్స్ దట్ ఐ చూస్ దర్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ వాటి గురించి కవర్ చేస్తాను. ఉదాహరణకి డ్యూ ప్రాసెస్ అలాంటి. ఇండియా పాకిస్తాన్ టెన్షన్స్, రీసెంట్ టెన్షన్స్ గురించి I was very closely following, and there is a lot of confusion, and there are a lot of memes, and internet exploded, especially the social media sites I follow exploded with memes and claims and what have you. To screen that for accuracy has been a challenge, right? Like uh, American media law, their coverage is inadequate. I trust BBC. అలాగే Indian media law, like total, it feels like total shit show to me, Indian media. Modi Bhats. So you have to weigh in what is more sensible and what is reasonable, what is accurate and Adan Gurinchi. It has been a challenge. Americana, it is a challenge, but in India it is much worse. But my overall belief is that India did what it has to do. Of course, prevention would have been better than all this nonsense. If they were able to do some, if they were able to secure these tourist spots from terrorism, etc., this we wouldn't have been in this, right? Like, okay, whatever has happened, happened. But the response seemed to be reasonable, proportional, and then targeted, etc. So that's a conclusion I came up with. And then uh, one voice of reason I saw in this whole thing is Shashi Tharoor, who's uh, he's on the in the opposition Congress Party MP, very reasonable, well articulate, and level-headed guy. When you listen to him, you can see, yeah, this seems like plausible, reasonable, and all that. So what I want to do in this video is, instead of saying exactly what I feel, what I think is right, I will channel Shashi Tharoor's historic perspective on India-Pakistan war, especially the one where Bangladesh got liberated. And then one of his recent interviews with David Trump. First, Shashi Tharoor's comment, I think this is on May 11th or May 10th. He was talking to a media.
Look, I think 1971 was a great achievement of our history. I'm proud of it as an Indian. Indira Gandhi ji rewrote the map of the subcontinent, but the circumstances were different. Today's Pakistan is a different situation. Their equipment, their military equipment, the damage they can do, everything is different. And the circumstances of Bangladesh, we were fighting a moral cause to actually bring people to freedom and liberation. That was a completely different story. This is a different story. We would have ended up with a much longer, protracted conflict with a lot of loss of life on both sides, a lot of damage, a lot of expense. Is this the biggest priority for India today? No, it's not. We wanted to teach those who had sent these terrorists across that there is a price to be paid. We still have to catch the individual terrorist perpetrators, but we do not need to tie the whole country down in a war. That is something I've been very clear about from the start. India did not, I believe, at any stage see the action of the 7th as the beginning or the opening salvo of a long protracted conflict. For us, it was one-off. We'll do it. If Pakistan did not escalate, we would not have escalated. Pakistan did. We also did. It was getting to a point where if it continued like this, we would needlessly have been caught into a long drawn-out war without a clear objective at the end of it. Liberating Bangladesh is a clear objective. Just keeping on firing shells at Pakistan is not a clear objective. You see the difference?
Liberating Bangladesh from Pakistan was a clear objective. Continuing to fire shells at Pakistan is not a clear objective. So very well said. Before I cue the next part of the video, actually, the full interview, David Trump interview with Shashi Tharoor, he just did 2-3 days ago. A full interview, it's worth watching. It's about 40 minutes and only. అందులో కొంత భాగం మాత్రమే నేను I will rechannel it. And before I rechannel Shashi Tharoor's part, it relates to United States involvement in this conflict. And that is exactly my observation about why Trump claiming credit, etc. So anyway, before that, I want to mention one thing. I am not a Modi Bhakt. Never, never, never. I'm not a Bhakt of anybody. I am also not anti-Modi. There are a few things Modi did I liked, especially repeal of Article 370. I hated that since I was a child, Article 370. So if you have a constitution, everybody has to be every region in the country should be the same. And Nehru was weak, and he had no idea how to deal with the Kashmiri situation back then. And he kind of agreed to some bullshit agreement that was called Article 370, what's that, Article 52A, whatever. All these things are nonsense. I think eventually, by hook or crook, that article was repealed, and I applaud Modi's government for that. So that's where there are a few things that I appreciated Modi for those. But overall, I think I have a problem with Modi Bhakts, as if he's some God sent gift or something like that. Another thing about it is secularism. I'm a strong proponent of secular India. You cannot fight with like 15-20% of the population who are Muslims and then brand them as like traitors, etc. So this is where some of his bhakts are headed. And then some of Modi bhakts are so religious, cultish. They call it like, oh, Sanatan this, Sanatan that. And I'm not religious. I'm also not anti-religion. I think religion has a purpose to serve, and not to hate others. That's not the purpose of the religion. Whether it's done by Islamists or it's done by Hindus or Christians, I say the same thing to everybody. So that's where my secularism comes. And also nationalism. Nationalism, it can be secular and nationalist too. You don't have to be a particular religion, like Christian nationalism, no. Hindu nationalism, no. Islamist, no. This is where I approach this issue. And Shashi Tharoor seemed to have similar opinions as I am, which is one reason why I made. And also, he's very articulate. He's very, very, very articulate. Andukane, I want you to listen to this. It will start with this part. David Frum asks about. Oh, by the way, who's David Frum? David Frum is a brilliant mind, absolute brilliant mind in American politics. At one point, I may have disliked him because he was associated with Bush administration, which invaded Iraq unnecessarily in the 2003 law. But he always sounded reasonable. Even when I did not like Bush administration, David Frum always sounded reasonable. He was also a speechwriter. Anyway, that question about Trump involvement in ceasefire, what they call it ceasefire. It's first of all, Trump brags about everything. So Pakka JD Vance munde annadu, I'll go to the and then Trump came and we use the trade as a weapon, blah blah blah. So it's like nonsense. I think everything that comes out of Trump administration, even if there is a sliver of truth in it, like 1% truth until 99% bah humbug. Shashi Tharoor, being the diplomat he put it in a very nuanced terms, and nenu blunt ga cheppinde chala beautiful ga cheppaadu.
Thank you so much for joining us today at this time of tension. Maybe you can begin by talking about the ceasefire. A ceasefire has taken hold. The Trump administration claims a lot of credit for brokering it. Do they deserve that credit?
We were all a bit puzzled by President Trump's posts on Truth Social and on X because India has historically been allergic to mediation, doesn't believe it needs it, and it's unlikely to have invited mediation in a formal sense. On the other hand, it's true that the US administration, in particular Secretary of State, now also NSA, National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, and to some degree Vice President Vance, have been speaking to Indian officials, as indeed Indian officials have acknowledged. The foreign minister's tweets will tell us about these calls. But it's one thing for the Indian foreign minister to say to the Americans, look, if the Pakistanis do this, we will do that. Or if they hit us, we're going to hit them harder back. And quite another for the foreign minister to say, would you mind relaying this message to the Pakistanis? India would never do the latter. They would do the former. And I think what happened then, perhaps, is that Rubio then called the Pakistanis and said, look, I've been talking to the Indians, and this is what they're saying. So you might want to take this into account. And would you not like to move in a different direction? That kind of thing. The initial Trump announcement gave the impression that the Americans and Indians and Pakistanis have been pulling an all-nighter, discussing everything jointly. That simply hasn't happened. And I think that's a misrepresentation of what role the US played. But I certainly don't want to sound ungrateful
for anybody who was willing to pull the Pakistanis down off the escalatory ladder that they had climbed onto. There was a terrorist outrage in India. India chose to react in a very careful, calculated, calibrated, and precise way, only against terrorist infrastructure, didn't strike any Pakistani military installations or any civilian or governmental installations, and basically signaled, look, we're only after terrorists, and we did the strike at 1:30 in the morning, so there wouldn't be too many civilians about. We wanted to avoid all collateral damage. It was a very responsible strike that the Indians conducted. The Pakistanis chose to react with unnecessary escalation. They shelled very heavily civilian inhabited areas of India, killing 22 civilians and hospitalizing a further 59 in the district of Peache in Kashmir. And frankly, India had to respond and did very, very strongly. And when India responded, it also attacked places it had so far kept off limits. It hit Pakistani air bases, for example, very hard. Pakistan has, because there are no terrorist infrastructure in India to aim at, Pakistan was assaulting Indian cities where ordinary human beings live. And that was simply unacceptable. We were able to use our air defense shield to stop that, but we hit the Pakistanis hard where it hurt. Now, this escalation was leading nowhere for nobody. As far as India was concerned, they delivered their message to the terrorists. They were willing to stop. As far as Pakistan was concerned, they didn't know when to say that their honor was satisfied. And if the US helped them to step off that ladder, the US gave them an excuse to climb down off it, so much the better, because India had no interest in a prolonged war. What was very clear from the manner of the Indian strike to begin with, David, was that India was trying to signal from the very start, this is not the opening salvo in a long conflict. This is just a one-off retaliation to a terror attack, period, nothing else. It's Pakistan that was taking it in the wrong direction, and I'm glad that stopped right now.
Well, let me ask you more about this American mediation.
And then David Trump went on to ask for more about India-Pakistan conflict under different presidents like Bill Clinton and George W. Bush and all that. It is a must-watch, especially if you are interested in US involvement, you're interested in knowing more about US involvement in India-Pakistan conflicts. ఒక విషయం మాత్రం నిర్ధారణ నేను చెప్పగలనండి, ఎందుకంటే నేను అమెరికాలో 1989 నుంచి ఉంటున్నాను. There is this misconception among a lot of Indians saying US helped terrorists in Pakistan. Indirectly, yes, but not to wage a war against India. They tried this abetting Pakistani army against Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. US side anta somewhere close to, if I'm not mistaken, I had statistics gathered, somewhere close to $90 billion over a period of time, like last 60 years. So it all went to fighting Soviets or some other elements, geopolitical issues over there. But it was never against India, to the best of my knowledge, from what I gathered. Actually, I have a document, maybe I'll do a video later on historic aid from US to Pakistan. One thing in this video that is very clear is somehow Pakistani Islamist army, it's what was the saying again? The Republic of India has an army. The Islamist army of Pakistan has a state. This is truer words have never been spoken, right? So they take all the aid from US or other places they convert it into their anti-Indian hate, and then they promote all these terrorist activities that create havoc in India. And that has been the case since I was a kid, or at least since the liberation of Bangladesh. Before అంతకుముందు ఈ టెర్రరిస్ట్ యాక్టివిటీస్ ఉన్నట్టు నాకు తెలియదు. అప్పుడు ఏంటంటే డైరెక్ట్ వార్స్ ఉన్నాయి. The terrorism and Kashmirలో escalate అయింది after Bangladesh got liberated. More and more it happening. Anyway, ఈ historic context వచ్చేసరికి I can go on and on, but there is no point. I strongly recommend watching this video. I will provide a link in the show notes, or maybe even it will show up in one of the links at the top of this video. In conclusion, as usual, Trump bullshitted, and his role is minimal, if there is any, and it only helped Pakistan step off the ledge and somehow claim, hey, look, we were treated equally with India. So వాళ్ళకి ఏదో చిన్న bragging rights ఇచ్చారు. Like, come on, you equate India with Pakistan, and it seems like Trump, that's what he did. That's all the more reason to Modi bugs, to detach yourself from Trump bug. So stick to Modi bug for now. Trump is an asshole. Just proved one more time. Anyway, it feels hard to ask you this. Please subscribe and stay engaged, Randy. Thank you.